There is a place where sound falls asleep before morning comes, a place where the air hums softly, like fabric brushing against memory. Here, words do not hurry. They drift, slow and silver, across the quiet surface of time. They settle in the mind the way dust settles upon old wood, softly, patiently, without need to be noticed. If you listen closely, you can hear them, echoes of stories once told beside the glow of flame. The laughter of distant nights, the murmur of voices gathered under moonlight, the slow turning of pages no hand remembers turning. All of it breathes still beneath the hush of the world, waiting for someone who will listen again. The wind carries these remnants from age to age, whispering them through corridors of sleep. They come as lullabies, as fragments of theatre and dream. Each one a quiet heartbeat of the human soul, pulsing gently through centuries of silence. And now, as night folds itself around you, as your breathing begins to slow, those stories return. They rise from the ashes of candlelight one by one, carrying their soft glow into the darkness. They do not ask you to think, they only ask you to rest, to drift, to wander, to let their rhythm move through you like the tide. This is not a tale to wake you, it is a tale to let you fall safely into the arms of quietness. Listen closely. The first sound is not a word. It is the faint ring of a small bell somewhere in the distance, calling you gently home. Beyond the veil of waking thought, a door opens, a quiet passage carved of moonlight and memory. Step through softly. You will find no rush here, no noise, only the pulse of time moving at the pace of breath. It begins in a hall of shadows and golden flame. Candles tremble on their stands, air shivers against stone. Somewhere, a faint laughter echoes, not loud, but kind. A figure stands beneath the light, a jester, motionless, half smiling. In his eyes, the centuries gleam like water caught in dusk. He lifts a hand, and the bells upon his wrist answer with a single silver tone. That sound becomes a thread, stretching outward, weaving the world that follows. The first fire, the first story, the first step upon the stage. Each chapter after this is a breath within the same dream. They unfold not as memories, but as moments still living. Moments of art, of movement, of human voice turned into light. Let them come to you gently as the night deepens. Let them guide you where time slows and the world listens. For within these tales lies not history, but heartbeat, the soft rhythm of all that ever sought to create and to rest and to be remembered. The distant laughter. In a hall that no longer remembers the sound of morning, soft light drifts through narrow windows where dust moves like snow suspended in time. Candles tremble along the long corridor, their small flames bowing in the rhythm of unseen air. Stone walls breathe the faint scent of age and echoes, and somewhere beyond the hush of velvet curtains, a bell rings, a fragile, silver whisper. Its tone curls through the stillness, slow and patient, until it fades into the fabric of the night. The great hall rests beneath arches that hold the memory of countless gatherings. Tonight, it is neither feast nor festival. It is only a quiet evening of slow reflection. The torches glow with the tired warmth of fading stars. Shadows lean against the marble pillars, and the air carries the soft hum of silence itself. At the far end, a figure appears, small against the endless hall, wrapped in motley fabric dulled by years. It is the Jester, though there is no crown to please, no court to charm. He steps forward, each motion unhurried, his shoes pressing faintly against the cool stone. The sound echoes once, then falls away, like ripples on a sleeping lake. He pauses beneath the chandelier, where hundreds of glass droplets hold trembling light. The Jester lifts a hand, and the little bells sewn into his sleeve answer with a gentle ring, soft, almost shy. It is not laughter he brings now, but the ghost of laughter, a trace of joy once loud and bright, now folded into the calm breath of night. He bows to the empty room, as though greeting old friends who have long since drifted into dreams. His smile is a line drawn in patience, not sorrow, for even in solitude he understands the delicate grace of stillness. He begins to move, slow and circular, a dance without rhythm, a gesture without audience. His reflection shimmers in the polished floor, twin figures gliding side by side, one real, one remembered. Outside, wind passes along the corridor, carrying a hush like the turning of pages. Somewhere, a clock murmurs the hour and then falls silent again. The Jester raises his head. The faint chime of the clock melts into the bell at his wrist, the two sounds blending until neither can be told apart. The hall listens. Even the flames seem to lean closer, curious but quiet. The air grows softer, filled with the subtle weight of calm expectation. The Jester closes his eyes. The rhythm of his breathing slows until it seems the entire room breathes with him. He begins a small routine, nothing bright, nothing bold, a tilt of the head, a flick of the wrist, a turn that seems borrowed from a half-forgotten melody. The sound of the bells follows his motion, marking each movement like the ticking of a gentle heart. The performance is for no one, and yet it belongs to everything: the stones, the candles, the air. He takes a step forward, then another, as though walking through memory. In his mind he still hears the laughter of distant evenings, soft and round as the golden rims of goblets. He remembers the ripple of silk gowns, the polite applause that brushed the edges of his world. Yet even these recollections are dim, blurred by time's kind fog. Now they arrive not as memories but as murmurs, lulling, circular, endlessly kind. He sits upon the edge of the dais and rests his chin on his hand. The bells on his hat sway with the smallest motion, giving the sound of a lullaby that forgot its words. The silence that follows is not empty. It is full of breath, warmth, and the comfort of being unseen. From far above, the ceiling holds faint constellations painted long ago, stars dulled by candle smoke. He gazes upward, tracing them without thought, finding patterns that no longer mean anything, and yet everything. The story of every performance, every face, every echo of applause still lingers there, in invisible ink. He reaches for the small bell tied around his wrist. It is old, a bit tarnished, but still loyal in its sound. He lifts it and lets it ring once more. The tone spreads slowly through the hall, gentle as rain upon leaves, until it dissolves into stillness again. In that moment, the air feels alive, aware, as though the hall itself sighs in contentment. He thinks of laughter, not as noise but as a light that once moved through people, passing from one to another, leaving warmth behind. Tonight that light is faint, but still present, resting quietly inside him. He smiles again, not for an audience, but for the peace that lingers in the act of smiling. His hands rest on his knees, fingers relaxed. The candlelight wavers across his gloves, tracing lines like the rings of a tree. Every mark, every shadow, every flicker tells a story of time unhurried. He closes his eyes. The hall becomes a sea of breathing silence. A faint breeze enters from a high window, drifting across the candles, making them bow ever so slightly. The scent of wax, stone, and faint perfume mixes into something old and safe. The sound of the bells returns in whispers, barely there, almost imagined. He begins to hum, a simple tone without melody, a sound between waking and dream. It fills the air with warmth, a cradle for the mind to rest in. The hum moves in circles, softer with each breath, until it becomes part of the night itself. In that stillness, one could imagine centuries unfolding quietly. The walls have seen kings, feasts, tears, and triumphs, yet tonight they witness only peace. The hall is not lonely, it is resting. The jester is not sad, he is simply still. The candles are not dying, they are breathing slower. Time seems to stretch and yawn, its pace slowing until even seconds forget to move. The bells at his wrist give one last shimmer, and then there is only the faint sound of air moving gently through the arches. He rises, not abruptly, but as though lifted by the same breeze that moves the curtains. His steps are soft, nearly soundless. Each one feels like a sigh given shape. He walks toward the center of the hall again, where the great chandelier hums with quiet light. He looks around the empty space and sees not emptiness but traces, the outline of what was, the warmth of what still is. His gaze moves like a lantern's glow, soft, never stopping long enough to disturb the dark. He turns once more, his cloak brushing the floor with a sigh of fabric. He bows deeply, as if greeting invisible company, as if saying goodnight to the centuries themselves. The act is small, reverent, and serene. Then he sits again, cross-legged on the cool marble, and lets his head tilt forward until his chin touches his chest. His breathing steadies, slow and rhythmic. The bells at his hat rest motionless, the candles shimmer, flicker, and continue their patient watch. The hall hums quietly in harmony with his breath. Dust drifts like falling snow. Far beyond the windows, the world turns in silence. The moon lingers behind thin clouds, sending down a diluted silver that mingles with the candlelight. He dreams with eyes half open, though he does not sleep as mortals do. His rest is within movement, within stillness. The rhythm of the hall becomes his pulse, and the pulse becomes the night. The air feels thick, yet light, like velvet soaked in sunlight long ago. The jester's figure seems to soften at the edges, the colors of his clothing blending into the shadows, until he becomes part of the hall itself. His outline remains, but it flickers gently, no longer certain where fabric ends and darkness begins. There is no need for words, no need for thought. The hall remembers the tone of his bell. The bell remembers the warmth of his hand. The hand remembers the pulse of laughter. All things circle softly, endlessly. A candle sighs and goes out, its small smoke curling upward in a slow dance. The jester does not move. He is at peace, unbothered by the fading light. The remaining flames gather closer, their glow folding around him like a blanket. Somewhere outside, night creatures sing low, long notes that weave into the hush. The hall joins their chorus, humming faintly through its stones. The sound is neither happy nor sad, only timeless. Moments dissolve, minutes blur. What was once a performance becomes a lullaby for the space itself. The walls breathe, the air dreams, the jester drifts. And when the last bell at his wrist gives a final shimmer, it is not an ending, but a pause, a gentle reminder that everything returns, everything rests. The echo of that single note hovers in the distance, softer, smaller, until it melts into the heart of silence. The great hall sleeps. Candles sigh, shadows stretch, and all that remains is the calm pulse of being. Somewhere, perhaps far away, a listener closes their eyes. The sound of the tiny bell becomes their heartbeat, steady, slow, safe. The world fades into warmth, and sleep, kind and ancient, arrives. The first steps of the stage. Night falls on a plain where no buildings stand, where the sky is a great bowl of shadow scattered with quiet stars. A wind moves over grass that bends and rises again, a sound like the hush of the sea in its sleep. Around a single fire, small and flickering, people gather. The light rests upon their faces, upon their hands, upon the edges of tools and stones laid nearby. It is the oldest kind of theatre, an open circle, a shared breath, a story being born. The fire murmurs and sighs, sparks drift upward, little travellers seeking the stars. Someone speaks low and even, the words are simple, but the rhythm of the voice carries them farther than meaning ever could. Others listen, their eyes gleam with that half-dreaming glow that comes when imagination awakens. Around them, the forest leans close, every leaf seems to listen. Somewhere in the dark, a night bird answers with one slow note. The storyteller lifts a hand. The hand moves through the air like smoke, shaping figures that only the mind can see. Fingers open, and in that gesture the listeners witness mountains rising. The wrist turns and rivers bend, the palm closes and night descends again. Nothing is written, nothing rehearsed, yet the story lives and breathes and walks among them. A child laughs softly, an elder smiles without words. Someone hums a faint tone that fits beneath the storyteller's speech, and soon the group moves together in rhythm. The beating of their hearts becomes the first drum. The breathing between sentences becomes the first song. Every motion, every flicker of expression, every pause begins to weave the fabric of performance. Long before any stage was built, there was already the circle. The circle meant safety, nearness, belonging. Within it, faces reflected the flame and each other. One could speak, another could listen, one could move, another could echo. The pattern grew until it became something more than speech. It became art. Not because anyone planned it, but because the need to share was older than the need to survive. The storyteller sits back, and another rises. This one does not speak at all. He moves his body in slow arcs, copying the sway of tall grass under wind. His feet draw spirals in the dust. He bends his arms, folds his shoulders, turns his face to the firelight. When he stops, everyone sees in his stillness the image of a tree holding its breath before dawn. No one names it, they simply understand. And that too is a kind of language. Through such small beginnings, movement learned meaning. A nod could signal thanks. An open hand could say welcome. A tilt of the head could invite laughter. People discovered that the body could speak when words grew tired. In those moments, performance became both play and memory. It was how one generation told another what had been and what must not be forgotten. Far away time turns, centuries pass like gentle tides, and everywhere firelight returns each night to the same pattern. Villages rise and fade, new tongues shape the same desire, to tell, to show, to remember. At riverbanks, travelers gather to hear a stranger's tale. In mountain caves, figures painted on walls extend the gesture of a moving hand. Story and motion are one, always returning to that first circle. The night deepens, the sky stretches wider. In the firelight, a woman begins to sing. Her voice is low, not for display but for comfort. She sings of rain, of the hunt, of the long walk home. The melody is no more than a line of breath, yet it settles over the listeners like a soft covering. Her eyes half close, her hands mark time with the rhythm of her heart. Others join her, one by one, until the sound becomes a shared hum. The story is now within the song, and the song within the story. Together they form the first play, a quiet ritual of remembering. No scripts, no names, no applause. Only the warmth of nearness, the shimmer of flame on faces. When the story ends, no one says it is over. They simply sit longer, hearing the last words echo inside themselves. In that lingering silence, something new is born. The understanding that beauty can live in the pause between moments. As generations drift forward, the circle grows larger. People learn to mark the ground, to raise stones, to carve spaces where voices carry better. The hill becomes an amphitheater of grass, later of wood, later still of stone. But the feeling remains the same. Eyes meeting eyes, breath following breath, the pulse of 100 hearts moving together beneath an open sky. Children watch elders act out the falling of rain, the growing of grain, the return of light after darkness. Each gesture is simple, each meaning clear. Yet within these movements lies something deeper, a pattern of care. To show the planting of seed is to hope for harvest. To mime the journey of the sun is to honor its return. The stage becomes a mirror where life can see itself and be reassured that it continues. When evening comes, torches replace the stars for a while. Performers step into their glow. One holds a stick as if it were a spear. Another drapes fabric over her shoulders, letting it catch the light like water. They walk, they turn, they fall, they rise. The watchers breathe with them, leaning forward, swaying slightly, caught in the quiet rhythm of recognition. They do not need to name the story. They feel it, and that is enough. Across distant lands, the same pattern repeats on plains of grass, under canopies of trees, beside rivers, beside dunes. People find ways to speak through silence and to listen through movement. Every place shapes its own tone, some with drums of hollow wood, some with clapping hands, some with the stamp of feet upon earth. Yet beneath every variation lies the same pulse, steady as the human heart. The body learns to tell everything: hunger, joy, longing, rest. Eyes learn to hold light and give it back. Words become waves, gestures become tides. From these, theatre is born, not suddenly, but gently, as dawn becomes day. No one knows when the first true play began. Perhaps it was when a hunter returned and retold his adventure with exaggerated stride. Perhaps it was when a mother soothed her child by imitating the calls of morning birds. Whatever its moment, it arrived not as invention, but as remembering. Deep inside, humans already carried the need to transform life into image. Performance was simply the body dreaming aloud. In those early gatherings, there were no lines between audience and performer. Each person could be both. A listener today might stand tomorrow retelling the same story with a new gesture, a new pause, a new way of breathing. Thus, theatre became the art of sharing breath. Sometimes, silence itself was part of the performance. When no words were needed, stillness spoke. The tilt of a head, the long look toward the horizon, the soft closing of eyes, all of these told stories without sound. Those who watched understood because they, too, had known, waiting, longing, remembering. Art grew not from mastery, but from empathy. Centuries unfold. People carve masks from bark, from clay, from woven fiber. They paint faces upon them, not to hide, but to reveal what cannot be shown otherwise. One mask smiles, another frowns, another remains serene. The performer holds each in turn, allowing emotion to pass through rather than belong to him. The mask teaches distance, the safe space between feeling and expression. Thus, performance becomes not only storytelling, but reflection. Fires give way to oil lamps, lamps to torches, torches to lamps again. Night after night, people gather. They listen to words now shaped by rhythm and repetition. The structure of narrative takes form, beginning, middle, end. Yet always within it there lingers the same lull of early nights, the hum of voices joined in memory. Even as language changes, tone remains the bridge. The deep voice tells of strength, the light voice carries wonder. Laughter becomes punctuation, silence becomes rest. The audience leans closer, drawn not by plot but by cadence. It is the sound of life breathing in harmony with itself. Over ages, these simple gatherings sow the seeds of the stage. Stone rises where earth once was. Benches replace the circle of feet. Still at the center burns the echo of the first fire. The storyteller stands in its warmth, feeling its flicker upon his face. He opens his mouth to speak, and through him flows the voice of all who ever spoke before. He begins not with grand tales, but with the simplest truth. We tell because we live together. To speak is to hold another's attention gently, to shape quiet into comfort. The audience listens, and in their stillness the storyteller hears the most faithful reply. And somewhere beyond the edges of the theatre, the night watches. Stars lean lower, curious, trees hold their breath. The wind carries fragments of words far into the dark, where they join other stories already waiting. So the chain continues, unbroken, unhurried. By now, the performers have learned that every gesture carries memory. The lifting of a hand recalls the ancestors who once lifted torches. The turn of a head recalls the first watchers who sat beside fires. Nothing is lost. Everything transforms. The stage is only the latest form of that ancient circle where light meets face, where sound meets silence. In the calm after each performance, when torches dim and seats empty, the ground itself seems to hum. The earth remembers footsteps, remembers voices, remembers the quiet between them. It hums softly, as if singing the same lullaby that began so long ago. To listen is to rest. To rest is to join the story. And so the first steps of the stage are not dramatic. They are gentle, deliberate, filled with patience. Each one leads inward, toward the shared center of human presence. The theater is not built of walls or wood, it is built of attention. Wherever people gather and let one another be seen, there the stage awakens. The storyteller finishes. The fire has grown smaller, its light no longer leaps but breathes. Faces are half in shadow, half in glow. No one moves to leave. The warmth holds them in a single thoughtless moment. The night stretches, slow and deep, wrapping all in the same stillness. Then, as if by unspoken cue, someone adds another log to the fire. The flame stirs, lifts, finds its rhythm again. New stories will come, new gestures will form, but for now, quiet reigns. The listeners close their eyes. The storyteller folds his hands. The circle breathes once more, steady, unbroken. Far across the dark, other fires answer, their lights blinking on distant hills. Each one marks a gathering, a memory, a continuation of that first impulse, to speak, to show, to remember, to stay close. The night accepts them all. Wind carries the mingled smoke upward until it joins the stars. And as the stars listen, the earth hums its approval. The rhythm of hearts, of voices, of movement merges with the slow rhythm of the world itself. It is calm, it is old, it is the beginning of theatre, still happening, still gentle, still near. stages of the ancient world. The world, in its earliest grandeur, opens like a scroll of light. Morning mist moves between pillars of stone. Footsteps echo along paths that no longer carry haste. The air is filled with patience, the patience of civilizations that have learned to speak not only through words, but through sound and gesture and silence. From these places, far and near, the art of performance rises like the slow tide of dawn. First, we walk to the shores of ancient Greece, where the hills lean gently toward the sea and the wind carries voices from long ago. Amphitheaters bloom along the mountainside, carved into curves of white marble that cradle both echo and sky. The seats rise tier by tier, circling the stage like ripples upon water. When one stands at the center, even a whisper can be heard above, because the stone remembers how to listen. The sun glints upon the masks, smooth faces of painted clay, waiting in stillness. Each mask holds an expression carved by centuries of observation, joy, sorrow, wonder, reflection. They are not disguises, but vessels, allowing emotion to travel beyond the fragile boundary of a single face. Actors lift them, fit them gently, and the air changes. What was one becomes many, what was fleeting becomes form. The chorus gathers. Their robes, dyed in soft hues of earth and sea, move with the slow rhythm of breath. A drum beats once, then again. The rhythm travels up through the terraces, touching every listener like the heartbeat of the ground itself. Then come the flutes, long and low, and the voices begin, not in speech, but in tone, half sung, half spoken. The words rise and fall like waves against marble, their meaning carried more by sound than sense. From far above, sunlight falls through clouds, painting silver lines upon the stage. Dust glitters in the air like tiny stars caught between day and night. The story that unfolds is not of gods or heroes, but of people, of love remembered, of loss accepted, of laughter shared across distance. Yet it is told not as sorrow, but as harmony. Each gesture, each note, each pause forming a pattern of calm inevitability. The audience leans forward, not seeking to understand, but to feel. They know that art is not a lesson, but a reflection. When the final voice fades, silence lingers. The sea below murmurs softly, completing the performance in its own timeless way. Actors bow, masks lower, the marble breathes again. The day continues, serene and endless. The theatre remains, a cradle of sound waiting for another evening. From Greece, we wander westward to the Empire of Rome. The air here is warmer, heavier with the scent of stone and distance. Great arenas stretch toward the horizon, their arches framing the wide sky. The voices of artisans echo faintly as they sweep the stage before the performance begins. The seats shimmer under sunlight, pale gold, ringed by shadow. Here, sound is grandeur. When the singers take their place, the air itself becomes instrument. Their voices rise, echoing off the curved stone, filling the amphitheater with a resonance so pure that it seems to still the wind. The notes travel upward and outward until they merge with the hum of the city beyond, market stalls, fountains, footsteps, all blending into one continuous song. Robes of crimson and ivory sweep the floor. The rhythm of sandals upon marble keeps time with the pulse of the drum. The actors move with quiet precision, a turn of the head, a sweep of the arm, a stillness that holds more meaning than words. In these gestures, the art of Rome reveals itself, not as imitation, but as architecture in motion. Each performance is built like a temple, each line measured like the arch of an aqueduct. The audience, thousands strong, breathes together. The sound of their collective presence hums beneath the performance, a soft undercurrent that never breaks. The singers raise their arms and the light gathers on their skin, turning sweat into silver. From somewhere above, a single bird crosses the open roof, its shadow gliding silently across the stage. It feels as though the world itself is watching, quiet, composed, waiting for the next note. When the song ends, the applause is gentle, almost reverent. No one shouts, they simply touch their hands together in a rhythm like rain, soft, unhurried. The echo carries for a long time, moving through corridors, between arches, down to the very stones that built the city. And when the last sound fades, only the whisper of the wind remains. From the heart of Rome, we drift eastward. The air changes, becoming softer, scented with rain and faraway blossoms. Across the rivers of China, stages rise beneath the open sky. Their platforms are wood and silk, their curtains painted with mountains, clouds, and the turning of seasons. Here, performance is a conversation with nature itself. The musicians sit cross-legged, their instruments carved from bamboo, bronze, and string. The notes they play are like brushstrokes, delicate, deliberate, fading into silence as quickly as they appear. The dancers enter, each movement measured, every turn precise. Sleeves of silk follow them like waves, fluttering with the grace of wind through willow leaves. They move in patterns both simple and infinite. Circles within circles, steps within breaths. Their faces are serene, neither smiling nor sorrowful. Emotion here is not shown, but suggested, glimpsed through the slow lift of a hand, the pause before a step. The stage itself is quiet, the air almost sacred in its calm. The sound of distant gongs drifts through the night, mingling with the soft rustle of silk. Time slows until each second becomes a world of its own. When the dance concludes, no one claps. The audience breathes in, then out, together, as though they have all seen a single dream. The performance is not something to finish. It is something to carry away inside. Lanterns sway gently overhead, painting circles of gold upon the faces below. The night resumes its steady hum. Farther south, across mountains veiled in mist, lies the world of India, vast, rhythmic, alive with motion. Here the stage is a courtyard beneath open air. Lamps burn low in brass bowls, their flames steady and patient. The performers step barefoot upon the earth, their anklets whispering in tiny bells. Around them, the audience sits in easy circles, close enough to see the patterns drawn by every hand. A drum begins, deep and slow. Its sound is not loud, but it fills the space completely, as though the earth itself is speaking. Then a flute joins, a single thread of melody winding through the darkness. The dancer moves, each step lands like the beat of a heart, each gesture opens like a petal unfolding. The rhythm of body and breath becomes story, the turning of seasons, the meeting of eyes, the quiet of evening rain. Light glows upon the dancers' faces, on the shimmer of fabric, on the dust rising beneath their feet. Their movements are both precise and fluid, as if carved from water. When they spin, the air hums. When they pause, stillness ripples outward like the afterglow of thunder. It is not performance as display, but as meditation, a dialogue between motion and quiet. The watchers do not interrupt. They breathe with the rhythm. Somewhere beyond the courtyard, the night creatures answer, chirping softly, keeping time. The story continues long after the dance has ended, for the earth remembers the pattern of each footstep, the shape of each pause. When the lamps are extinguished, their smoke curls upward in threads of blue-grey, carrying the memory into dawn. And then, farther still, we drift east once more, to the islands where mist clings to cedar forests, and the sea hums against stone shores. In Japan, the stage stands upon polished wood, bare and open, framed by simplicity. A pine tree is painted on the backdrop, its branches stretching wide, a symbol not of story, but of presence. The performers walk with measured pace, their feet sliding soundlessly, their robes whispering across the floor. Here, art becomes stillness refined. The flute begins, its sound thin as glass, trembling like breath caught in the air. The drum answers, low and distant, a heartbeat beneath the melody. The actor lifts a fan, the fan unfolds with a sigh. Each motion contains a lifetime, each pause an eternity. To watch is to listen is to enter silence itself. The audience sits perfectly still, they do not lean, they do not murmur. Their stillness is part of the performance, a mirror in which movement reflects its own beauty. The actor bows, the drum ceases, and the silence that follows is deeper than any sound could be. The pine tree watches, eternal and unmoving, as another story ends, like the setting of the sun. Across all these lands, the essence of the stage remains the same. Whether in marble or wood, under open sky or within shadowed halls, the purpose is shared, to show what cannot be spoken, to let the invisible breathe. The beauty lies not in grandeur, but in attention. The way eyes meet light, the way a voice fills space, the way a single hand raised slowly can quiet 1,000 hearts. Theatres, from one end of the earth to the other, share this quiet kinship. They are places where light learns to move, where sound learns to rest. Curtains, robes, masks, instruments, all are tools through which the human spirit practices remembering itself. Each civilization adds a color to the tapestry: marble white, silk blue, bronze gold, lacquer red. Together they form a harmony older than memory. Imagine standing at the center of them all. The Greek amphitheaters curve behind you, the Roman arches before you, the Chinese silk fluttering at your side, the Indian drum beneath your feet, the Japanese pine before your eyes. The air hums with layers of sound and silence. You feel the pulse of every age moving through you like wind. You realize that every performance, no matter its form, is the same act of wonder, to turn being into rhythm and rhythm into peace. The night deepens across continents. In one place, torches fade. In another, lanterns rise. Dancers step into shadow. Singers rest their voices. The masks are set down. The fans are closed. Yet the echo continues. An endless whisper, moving from shore to shore, from language to language, carrying the same soft truth. Art is how the world breathes together. And when morning comes, no one remembers the stories in full. What remains is sensation, the warmth of light upon skin, the resonance of sound within chest, the memory of fabric turning in air. These linger quietly, waiting to return each night when the stage awakens again. Light fades. The wind moves gently through the old theatres, brushing dust from the seats, sighing through the arches. It sounds like applause, or perhaps like sleep. The world rests, wrapped in its own music, and the stages of the ancient world dream on. When truth hides within a smile. The evening returns as softly as a thought. Beyond the quiet walls of memory, the light fades, slow as breath. The air holds that tender pause between sound and silence, when nothing needs to happen, and yet everything is still alive. In this hour, when the world hums faintly, and time seems to rest upon its own shoulder, a familiar figure appears once more. The Jester has returned. He does not step onto a stage this time. He stands instead beside it, watching from the shadow where light and distance meet. His bells no longer ring, his colors have softened with the dust of years. He wears the same small smile, not out of duty, but out of understanding. He has learned that smiles, when quiet, can hold more truth than words ever could. The hall before him is filled again, but not with laughter or applause. Tonight it breathes like a forest in calm weather. The candles burn low. The music, faint and distant, drifts like mist through open doors. Somewhere, strings hum a note that lingers just beyond recognition. The rhythm is slow, deliberate, like footsteps upon soft earth. The jester listens. He listens not with his ears, but with the stillness of his body. He has performed all his roles and spoken all his lines. Now he simply observes. From the corner of the hall, he watches the people gathered, their gestures, their glances, the way they lean toward one another when they whisper. In each of them, he sees a mirror of something familiar, something that once belonged to him. He realizes, perhaps for the first time, that every stage is the same, whether carved from stone, built of wood, or shaped only by moonlight and air. It serves one purpose: to let people see themselves. Every story ever told is a reflection, every dance a remembered heartbeat, every line a breath from some distant version of humanity. He smiles again, a small curve that glows softly in the half-light. Around him, the air shimmers with quiet sound. The strings fade into flutes, and the flutes into the hush of wind. Somewhere beyond the open window, the night hums gently through the trees. The leaves tremble as though listening. The jester's gaze follows the movement, and he thinks of all the moments he once filled with laughter, the echoes, the cheers, the bursts of joy that rose like sparks and then vanished into air. How fleeting they were, and yet how alive. He does not mourn them. He understands now that laughter, too, is only another form of silence learning to speak. He walks slowly along the edge of the hall, his footsteps nearly soundless. The floor reflects the glow of candles, and his reflection moves beside him, a companion made of light and dust. He lifts his hand, and the reflection lifts with him, a perfect echo. The motion feels like greeting an old friend. He wonders if perhaps that is what life truly is, the act of waving gently to one's own shadow. The music swells slightly, enough to fill the space with warmth. It is neither sad nor joyful. It simply exists unhurried. The notes drift like feathers falling through sunlight, soft and weightless. The jester closes his eyes and lets the melody pass through him. For a moment, he forgets the years, the performances, the long corridors of time. There is only breath and sound, only stillness and movement woven together like fabric. When he opens his eyes again, he finds himself standing at the center of the hall. No one notices him. The audience is lost in the music, the performers lost in their rhythm. He watches as a dancer glides across the floor, her robe a whisper of silver and pale blue. Her hands trace arcs in the air, slow and deliberate, as though she were painting light itself. The jester feels the echo of her movement deep within his own limbs. He does not move, but he feels as though he is dancing too. The realization comes to him quietly, like dew forming on leaves. That art, in all its forms, has never belonged to those who create it. It belongs to the watching, to the listening, to the stillness shared between souls who recognize themselves in motion. Every smile, every tear, every sigh ever given on a stage is only a way of saying, "I see you." He sits at the edge of the platform and lets his bells rest upon the floor. They make no sound. He touches one lightly with his fingertip, and it sways without ringing, as if even sound now respects the quiet. His thoughts wander without urgency, drifting from scene to scene, from place to place. He remembers marble theatres and wooden stages, fields lit by torches, courtyards beneath the stars. Each memory feels like a soft wind passing through an open door. People came, people watched, people left. Yet in all of it, one thing remained, the need to share a moment of truth, even when hidden behind a mask. He understands now that his laughter, once thought frivolous, was also a kind of truth. It spoke not to the mind, but to the heart's simple wish, to feel connected even for an instant. That was his role all along, though he had never known it fully until now. The music shifts again. A harp joins the melody, its notes light as falling snow. The sound glides through the hall, touching the corners where shadow sleeps. The audience seems to breathe with it, a collective rhythm of ease. Time slows, not as a trick, but as a kindness. The air itself feels softer, the light rounder. The jester lets the sound wash over him, feeling each note dissolve upon the surface of his thoughts. He glances toward the audience and sees faces half-lit, serene, open. Some smile faintly, others close their eyes. He realizes that in their stillness, they too have become performers. They mirror the stage without knowing, completing the circle. The dancer moves, the viewers feel, the jester observes, all parts of one quiet symmetry. In that symmetry lies the essence of peace. He stands once more, not because he must perform, but because he wishes to move with the music one last time. His arms rise slowly, the sleeves of his garment trailing like smoke. His feet shift, gentle as drifting leaves. He moves without plan or pattern, letting the melody guide him. To those watching, it might seem accidental, but each gesture finds its place perfectly within the rhythm. The bells at his wrists remain silent. The sound is carried instead by the whisper of fabric. For a moment, he feels no separation between himself and the hall, between body and air. He is simply part of the quiet unfolding, one thread among many. The music fades gradually, and as it does, his movements grow smaller, slower, until he stands still once again. The silence that follows is deep, yet it carries no weight. It is the kind of silence that listens. He bows, not to the audience, not to the stage, but to the space itself, the invisible presence that holds everything together. Then he turns and walks toward the open door. The night beyond is calm. The moonlight lies across the steps like a silver carpet. He steps onto it without hesitation, as though returning home. Outside, the world is vast and still. The air carries the scent of rain long past, the sound of crickets singing far away. The jester looks up at the sky. The stars shimmer faintly, scattered like drops of water upon black silk. He smiles, not the practiced smile of performance, but the natural curve that comes when one finally understands. He knows now that the stage is not confined by walls or curtains. It exists wherever people live, breathe, and notice each other. A glance shared between strangers, a word spoken softly in passing. These, too, are performances of the soul. Truth hides within such small moments, waiting to be recognized. He walks along the path that winds through the garden. Dew gathers on the grass, reflecting the moon's light in tiny sparks. Each step feels gentle, deliberate, as though the earth itself were cushioning his way. The world seems to hum beneath his feet, a low, endless note of calm. A fountain murmurs nearby. The water rises and falls with a rhythm older than memory. He listens, and within its song he hears laughter, the same laughter that once filled the hall, softened now into the gentlest music. He sits beside it and lets his hand trail in the water. The ripples spread outward, shimmering like threads of glass. For a long while, he simply watches them fade. He realizes that everything moves toward stillness, yet nothing truly stops. The performance never ends, it only changes form. The water dances, the wind sings, the stars gaze downward in their slow, endless walk. Even silence moves, it flows, it deepens, it breathes. He smiles again, feeling small and complete all at once. The night grows cooler. A soft mist begins to rise from the grass, curling around the stones like sleep itself. The Jester leans back, resting against the base of a tree. The bark is rough beneath his hand, grounding, real. Above him, branches sway, drawing patterns against the sky. He closes his eyes. The sound of the fountain, the rustle of leaves, the distant murmur of the hall behind him, all blend into one continuous whisper. In this quiet, he feels no need to speak. He has said enough, laughed enough, been seen enough. Now he simply is. The bells on his sleeves rest motionless, yet he can almost hear them ringing in his memory, not as noise but as rhythm, an echo of all the moments that brought him here. He breathes slowly, evenly, in harmony with the night. Time, that restless companion, seems to have set down its watch and joined him. Minutes pass unnoticed, perhaps hours. The difference no longer matters. What remains is the gentle truth of existence itself, that to observe is also to belong. Somewhere far away, another performance begins. He can almost hear it, the faint murmur of a crowd, the first note of a flute, the sound of fabric moving through air. It comforts him to know that others continue where he has paused. The circle endures, the stage remains lit, even when unseen. He opens his eyes once more. The moon has shifted higher, pale and kind. Its light rests upon the bells at his wrist, making them glow faintly as if alive again. He lifts his hand, and the bells ring softly, one last time. The sound is pure, gentle, brief, a farewell and a beginning. It drifts upward, meeting the night air, then fades into silence. The Jester smiles, not out of joy, not out of sadness, but from the calm knowing that every truth, no matter how small, finds its way into the world, sometimes through laughter, sometimes through quiet, sometimes hidden within a smile. He closes his eyes once more, and the night carries him inward, toward rest. The fountain continues to sing, the wind moves through the trees. Somewhere behind the walls, the music of the hall begins again, faint but eternal. Its notes rise, fall, and linger in the air, weaving softly through the rhythm of his breath. And as the sound drifts farther and farther away, the world itself seems to lean closer, whispering the same timeless lullaby, that all things, seen or unseen, move together in peace. The Jester sleeps, and the night, kind and unbroken, keeps watch. When hands begin to move, the ancient martial arts. There is a moment before dawn when the air holds its breath. The world stands balanced between night and day, still and waiting. In that stillness, the body learns its first truth. That movement begins not with muscle, but with awareness. A single inhale becomes a wave through the spine. A single exhale becomes the settling of the earth. Long before the art of battle was known, long before the language of combat was born, there was only this, the slow conversation between motion and stillness, body and breath. In the earliest days, before names and schools, before swords and scripts, there were hands that shaped the world, lifted water, tended fire, greeted dawn. They learned the weight of balance by feeling wind pass between fingers. They learned rhythm by following the pulse beneath the skin. Through such quiet lessons, movement became understanding, and from understanding, art was born. The first gestures were soft, circular, without intention to harm. They mirrored the way rivers bend, the way branches yield, the way clouds drift. Each motion contained its own rest, each pause its own energy. It was said that one could find harmony simply by tracing the path of air with one's palm. The body in those moments was not a tool, it was the world learning to breathe. Far to the south, in lands of golden light and endless song, the people of India discovered a language of movement that flowed like water. It was slow, continuous, without edges. The arms rose with the inhale, opened with the exhale. The spine curved, then straightened like a reed swaying in gentle current. Each gesture was an echo of the natural world, the arc of the sun, the turning of tides, the unfurling of petals at dawn. To watch them move was to witness a dance that carried no desire for victory. It was not made for conquest but for comprehension. The practitioners sought to know their bodies as they might know a river, by listening, not by forcing. They moved until the line between strength and gentleness disappeared. Breath led motion, motion led thought, and thought returned again to breath. Their feet pressed lightly upon the earth, never claiming it, only touching, as if each step were a question. Their hands followed invisible paths drawn by memory, by instinct, by air itself. Each rotation of the wrist felt like time turning. Each slow extension of the arm mirrored the horizon's widening. In those gestures lived both past and future, meeting softly in the present moment. The art taught patience. To move too quickly was to lose the pulse. To move too slowly was to lose the breath. Balance existed in the middle, where thought and action became one. Practitioners stood beneath trees near rivers, upon plains washed by rain, and listened to the sound of their own breathing. The body became instrument, the wind became rhythm, and life itself became teacher. Northward and eastward across mountains veiled in mist, movement found another form. In China, where mornings begin with pale fog and the sound of bamboo bending, the art of motion deepened into meditation. It was called by many names through time, but at its heart, it remained the same. A dialogue between breath and the unseen world. The practitioners rose at dawn. Dew clung to the grass, and the first light spread across the river like silk. They stood still for a long while, feeling the weight of their bodies sink gently into the earth. The breath began as a whisper, shallow and uncertain. Then slowly it deepened, spreading warmth through the chest, through the arms, through the fingertips. The world seemed to inhale with them. Then the movement began. The arms lifted with the ease of clouds drifting across mountains. The hands opened, palms upward, receiving the morning. The spine rolled and unrolled, vertebra by vertebra, as though waking from ancient sleep. The motion was circular, seamless, without beginning or end. The breath and the body became mirrors of one another. Inhale to rise, exhale to settle. Observers might have called it dance, yet it was quieter than dance, closer to the rhythm of tides or seasons. It carried neither haste nor resistance. The body did not fight the air, it moved with it. The practitioner felt the wind against the skin, and rather than oppose it, he followed it, shaping his own flow to its direction. To resist was to break. To move with was to endure. In this way, motion taught acceptance, and acceptance became strength. As the sequence continued, the breath slowed further until it felt as if the entire world was breathing in unison. Birds stirred, trees swayed, water rippled, all sharing the same pulse. In that communion, the practitioner's awareness expanded outward, touching the edges of sound, the edges of stillness. The boundary between inner and outer dissolved, and there was only flow. This art, born of listening, was never about striking or defending. It was about remembering the harmony that already exists between all things. To lift a hand was to acknowledge the wind, to lower it was to honor the earth. Through these small, repeated gestures, the body learned what the mind had forgotten, that peace is not found by stilling the world, but by moving gently within it. Farther east, where islands rose from mist and forests met the sea, Japan gave movement a new dimension, stillness before motion. Here, the art of the body was refined into quiet precision, a language spoken in pauses. Practitioners stood for long moments without moving, as though carved from the same silence that filled the air. Their hands rested loosely at their sides, their breath steady, measured. The wind shifted through the pines, whispering its invisible rhythm. When at last the practitioner moved, it was not sudden. It was the unfolding of inevitability. A single step carried the gravity of patience. The movement was neither slow nor fast, it was exact. The sword, when raised, gleamed only faintly, not as weapon, but as extension of breath. The motion began before the hand moved and ended after it stopped, like ripples that continue long after a stone has touched water. Every gesture was deliberate. A bow was not courtesy, it was awareness. A turn of the wrist was not habit, it was balance rediscovered. Even stillness had movement within it, a quiet trembling of energy contained but alive. The art was not in force but in restraint, not in domination but in understanding the perfect timing of a single breath. To train was to learn patience so deep it became serenity. The practitioner's gaze softened until it could hold both calm and readiness. He did not seek victory, he sought harmony between his heart and the moment before him. The mind, once restless, grew silent. The body, once heavy, grew light. In that union, motion emerged naturally like wind moving through grass. Watching such practice was like observing time itself breathe. The slow inhale before movement, the crisp exhale as the body turned, the pause that followed. Each cycle mirrored the universe's rhythm. It was as if all creation pulsed through one living form. In that stillness, one could feel eternity pause to listen. From India's flowing grace to China's circular balance, from Japan's poised silence, the language of movement shared one truth. The body, when guided by awareness, becomes the purest form of art. These traditions, separated by distance and shaped by centuries, spoke to the same essence. Each breath carried memory, each gesture was a bridge between the seen and unseen. The jester, who once brought laughter, might have smiled to see it. He would have recognized in these movements the same quiet performance he once knew. The stage, now the world, the audience, the sky. For in these arts, there was no division between practice and presence. Every motion was a bow to existence itself. The night deepens. Somewhere, a practitioner stands upon a quiet plain. Moonlight falls across the water, silver and smooth. He inhales and the world seems to brighten. He exhales and the water shivers gently. His arms move in arcs that echo the moon's reflection. His feet glide across the grass as though walking upon memory. No one watches, yet the universe feels every motion. He turns slowly, deliberately, completing a circle. His breathing remains calm, his pulse steady. The rhythm of his heart matches the rhythm of wind through reeds. He is both the mover and the moved, both cause and consequence. In that harmony, the idea of battle disappears entirely. There is no enemy here, no conflict, only flow. The art of motion in its purest form teaches the same lesson as stillness, that peace is not the absence of movement, but its perfect balance. To breathe is to move is to live. When the breath becomes calm, motion becomes grace. When grace fills motion, the world itself seems to soften. Imagine standing beside such a practitioner. You feel the air shift each time he moves, but never sharply, only with the softness of leaves turning. You begin to match his rhythm unconsciously. Inhale as he rises, exhale as he settles. Soon your breathing aligns and your mind quiets. The body loosens its edges. You no longer watch, you join. This is the true inheritance of ancient martial art, the remembrance of unity. The hands move, not to strike, but to express. The feet shift, not to chase, but to balance. The eyes open, not to judge, but to see clearly. Through repetition, through patience, through the long companionship of breath, one learns to live within movement and rest within motion. As dawn approaches, the practitioner lowers his arms. The air around him still vibrates faintly, as though the echo of his presence lingers. The world feels cleaner somehow, emptied of noise, filled with quiet purpose. He bows slightly, not to anyone, but to the morning itself. The act is both beginning and end. The sun's first light touches the edge of the horizon. Dew shines like scattered glass. The breath of the earth deepens, so does his. He stands there, hands at rest, heart at ease. The silence is not emptiness, it is fullness waiting. Somewhere far away, others breathe with the same rhythm. Across mountains, valleys, and seas, unseen practitioners raise their hands to greet the dawn. The forms differ, the steps change, but the essence remains, the quiet unity of breath and being. Together, though apart, they move as one great tide, guided by the pulse of life itself. And when the day fully awakens, the motion fades back into stillness, as if the world has completed its own gentle kata. The wind quiets, the rivers slow. The birds pause between songs. Everything rests in that brief, luminous balance before new movement begins again. In this eternal cycle, the lesson remains clear, that strength lies not in force but in harmony, that awareness transforms effort into ease, that within the smallest motion, the universe turns. The ancient arts of movement were never about victory. They were songs in slow motion, prayers of breath, lullabies for the soul, spoken through the body. And now, as you listen, you may feel your own breath matching theirs. The air enters softly, leaves gently. The shoulders relax. The heartbeat slows. Inhale, rising. Exhale, settling. The mind drifts like a leaf upon calm water. The world grows quiet around you, and within that quiet, everything moves in perfect peace. The lesson is complete. The hands are still. The breath continues. The body, once restless, has found its rhythm again. You are the practitioner now, the observer, the mover, the still point in motion. The art lives through you as softly as air passing through dawn. And as the light fills the horizon, the ancient rhythm of the world continues to breathe endlessly, patiently, beautifully. The hands rest. The heart listens. The earth exhales. Art, the mirror of humanity. The night settles slowly, like the final page of a long story turning itself. The air is mild, the stars patient, and the world seems to hum in a key too deep to hear. Somewhere in that vast quiet, the memory of art breathes, an ancient companion, steady as the pulse beneath the wrist of time. From the very beginning, before there were names or tools, there was wonder. Around the first fires, people gathered. Their faces glowed orange with light, their shadows flickered against the stone. The crackle of the flame was the first applause, the darkness beyond, the first curtain. Someone spoke, someone listened, someone moved, and in that small circle of warmth, humanity found its reflection. That moment, simple and unplanned, was where art began. It was not about beauty, not about meaning. It was a way to remember. When the voice of one became the thought of many, when gesture turned into rhythm, when the shared breath between strangers felt like understanding, that was the birth of creation. The story, the song, the movement all grew from the same seed, the wish to be seen and to see in return. Through ages the flame spread. It flickered across walls painted with ochre and ash, where figures of animals and hunters came alive under torchlight. It glowed in carvings, in melodies shaped from bone flutes, in dances that traced the turning of seasons. The first theatres rose from earth itself, amphitheatres of wind and stone, where words and silence learned to share the same stage. In ancient lands, art grew in many forms but spoke one language. In Greece, voices rose to meet the sky, echoing through marble hills. In Rome, choruses of stone carried sound beyond the city's edge. In India and China and Japan, hands shaped stories from air, silk, and rhythm. Everywhere, art followed breath, one moment inhaling life, the next exhaling memory. Time, like a great tide, carried these forms forward. The world changed, but art remained the gentle thread that tied each generation to the next. Even as empires fell and languages faded, the human need to create, to share, to show, to remember, never left. The stage gave birth to the written page, and words found a way to hold silence inside them. Music learned to travel farther than the body, carried by wind, by wire, by dream. Colors sought new surfaces, stone gave way to canvas, canvas to light. Art became the way the world saw itself in motion, and still, at its core, nothing changed. The same spark that once danced in the eye of the storyteller by the fire now gleamed in the gaze of the painter, the actor, the musician, the filmmaker. The tools shifted, the hands changed, but the breath was the same. Every creation was a heartbeat echoing through time. Art, in its quiet persistence, became humanity's memory. Each note, each brushstroke, each frame held a whisper of the people who came before. It was through art that they spoke, not with logic, but with feeling. It was through art that they remained, long after their names faded. A song hummed by a stranger still carries the same warmth as one sung by ancestors. A gesture on a screen can awaken 1,000 forgotten moments in the heart. In this way, art became both messenger and mirror. It taught people to see themselves not as separate, but as connected. To look upon a painting was to see the face of another and recognize one's own reflection there. To listen to a melody was to feel that same hidden ache or joy moving quietly through one's chest. Every form, every color, every sound was a bridge between person and person, between time and time. As the centuries deepened, art learned new light. The stage, once framed by torches, grew wide enough to hold the world itself. The invention of film became another kind of flame, flickering images projected onto the dark, shadows made radiant. The screen became the new fire, and again, people gathered. They leaned forward, their faces bright with reflected light, their hearts beating together in the hush before the story began. In the dark of the theatre, as in the dark of the first cave, they remembered what it meant to see and be moved. The rhythm continued, voices found microphones, music filled airwaves, brushes dipped into pixels and light. Art followed wherever the human heart wandered. It walked beside progress, never arguing, never rushing, simply adapting, always whispering, "Remember." It reminded the world of softness amid noise, of connection amid distance, of presence amid speed. Even now, when cities glow brighter than stars and machines hum louder than rivers, art remains the quiet heartbeat underneath it all. A single violin in an empty room, a photograph of sunlight through leaves, a dance performed to no audience but air. These are still the same acts of remembering that once began by the fire. Every artist, knowingly or not, is part of that unbroken chain. Each draws from the same endless well of human feeling. The tenderness of longing, the hush of awe, the simple ache of being alive. They shape these feelings into sound or form, offering them to others who recognize themselves within them. That recognition, small and wordless, is what keeps the world whole. Art does not promise answers. It does not demand belief. It simply offers reflection. In the mirror it holds, humanity sees its laughter, its sorrow, its kindness, its confusion, its beauty. It sees the marks of its journey, the fires lit, the stages built, the films unspooled into light. And through that seeing, it understands that every story, every song, every brush of color has always been about the same thing, the wish to know oneself through another's gaze. Now, as the night grows deeper, the great gallery of time stands quiet. The paintings sleep in their frames, the sculptures rest in their stillness, the films wait behind closed lids of reels and screens. Yet even in this rest they breathe. The walls of museums hum with memory. The floors of theaters remember footsteps. The old instruments, though untouched, hold the faint vibration of music long past. Nothing is ever silent. Everything keeps echoing softly. If one listens closely, one can still hear the fire, the first fire. It crackles somewhere beneath all the noise of the world. Its warmth continues through every light, every sound, every breath of art that followed. The circle remains unbroken. The same instinct that once made a hand trace the outline of a bison on a cave wall now guides a lens to capture light, a pen to draw a line, a voice to hum in darkness. And though the forms have grown infinite, the purpose remains gentle and small, to connect, to remind each soul that it belongs to something vast, something shared, something kind. Every glance at a painting, every note of a melody, every flicker on a screen is a moment of recognition, a silent nod between one heart and another across time. Each piece of art is both question and answer, though it never needs to be asked or solved. It exists to remind us that feeling itself is proof of life, that to weep at a song or smile at a story is not weakness but participation. We are all part of the same long performance, each of us carrying a fragment of the script written in light and sound and motion. If art is a mirror, then it is one made not of glass but of time. It shows not only what is, but what has been and what might be. In its reflection we see humanity learning to stand, to sing, to create, to remember. We see ourselves as part of that endless rehearsal where every gesture, no matter how small, adds to the beauty of the whole. Even when the lights dim and the curtain falls, the reflection remains. It lingers in the mind, glowing faintly behind closed eyes. It whispers, "This is who we are, this is who we have been, this is who we continue to become." The art of the past holds the silence of time, yet within that silence lies a hum, soft, familiar, eternal. It is the sound of human breath shared across centuries, the same exhale that rises from the first storyteller's lips and drifts now through speakers, through strings, through screens. Each breath joins the next, forming an unending melody that belongs to everyone. When we stand before a painting or sit in the dark of a theatre, when we hear music drift from somewhere unseen, we are not just witnesses, we are continuations. Our eyes, our ears, our hearts complete the work that began long ago. Without us, art would be only potential. Through us, it becomes alive again. In that way, every viewer, every listener, every dreamer becomes part of the creation itself. And so the circle closes softly, beautifully. From the spark of the first flame to the shimmer of modern light, art has been humanity's reflection, constant and kind. It has changed shape 1,000 times, but never lost its essence. It reminds us that to live is to create, to feel is to remember, to share is to endure. Now the night breathes deeper, the stars blur slightly in their endless gaze, the world grows still, content in its long remembering. Somewhere the last flicker of light fades upon a screen, and in that gentle darkness the story continues within each listener's heart. Art rests, but it does not sleep. It listens quietly for the next breath, the next gesture, the next song, and when it comes it will rise again, familiar and new, carrying the same truth it has always held, that every look, every sound, every motion is a fragment of humanity's memory, shimmering softly in the endless mirror of time. When all the stages fall asleep. The night has reached its quietest hour. The air rests without movement, like silk laid upon still water. One by one, the lights of the old theatre fade, leaving behind a glow that trembles and sighs. At the very center, beneath the pale hush of a single candle, the Jester stands once more. His colors are dimmed, his bells no longer bright. He holds a small silver bell in his hand, the same that once rang through laughter and memory. For a long while, he does not move. The hall breathes around him, vast and calm. He listens to the air as if it were music, the distant hum of time folding into itself. The candle's flame bends, catches and steadies again. Its light brushes the floor, tracing the faint circle where countless footsteps once danced. He kneels, slowly, with care. The bell glimmers faintly in his palm, warm from his touch. He studies it as one might study a star that has fallen close. The sound it carries is not for noise, but for memory, the soft echo of every story ever told. He smiles, not wide, only enough to soften the silence. Then with breath as gentle as sleep, he lowers the bell to the ground. The metal touches stone. It rings, a single, tender note, thin as light upon water. The sound drifts upward, weaving through air and dust, reaching the far corners of the hall. It lingers, glows, and slowly fades. When it goes, it leaves a sweetness behind, like perfume long after the flower is gone. The Jester bows his head. He closes his eyes. Around him, the world begins to settle. Benches exhale their weight. Curtains sigh against one another. Air folds like velvet. The music that once filled the room dissolves into a hum too soft to name. Outside, the moon watches from its high window. It spills silver light through cracks in the wall, painting the scene in gentle tones. Dust glimmers as it falls, small drifting stars returning home. He rests his hands upon his knees. The stage beneath him seems to breathe once, then stills. No applause, no curtain call, no farewell. Only quiet acceptance, calm and complete. And then silence. The kind that feels alive, as though the earth itself were holding its breath. The kind that fills the heart without a sound. When the last echo of the bell has gone, the world stands in perfect peace. The hall sleeps, the stories sleep. The lights, the laughter, the music, all folded into the same dark comfort. Somewhere far away, another night begins. Another dream stirs. But here, all motion has ended. Only the rhythm of breath remains, soft and slow. It is said that when the Jester's bell grew silent, time paused to listen. The stars leaned closer, and the wind stopped wandering. Even the sea, far beyond the hills, seemed to rest its waves upon the shore. In that moment of stillness, the whole world became a stage of dreams. Every sleeping soul became an audience of one. Every breath became a curtain of night, rising and falling in perfect rhythm. And so the tale concludes, not with ending, but with rest. When night descends, every song, every story, every face upon every stage finds its quiet place to lie down. The voices close like books upon a shelf of stars. The melodies fold themselves into silence, waiting for dawn to call them again. Now the world exhales. The candle sighs, the Jester's smile remains, faint as moonlight upon stone. When darkness deepens, all the stages sleep. But somewhere within the hush of dreams, the stories continue, slow and tender. They drift through the night, soft as breath, endless as time. When night falls, every song, every story sleeps, yet somewhere within the dream, the world still performs, gently, quietly, forever.